This is the perfect RIA, in case you didn't know. Bringing you all the strategies to help your business grow. Are you happy? Are you satisfied? Are you hanging on the edge of your seat? Sit back and listen in while you feel the beat, yeah. Another myth bites the dust.
Today's podcast is brought to you by TPR Live. That's right, the Perfect RA. Micah and myself will be joining you live and in person in Phoenix, Arizona on September 25th, where we will be helping you with all things related to fees, how much to charge your clients, how to adjust your fees, how to explain fees to your prospects, and of course, the extreme accountability around how to make that actually happen. So go to theperfectria.com/live to get signed up and get all those important details. Alrighty, back to the show. Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Perfect RA Podcast. I'm your co-host, Matthew Jarvis, and with me, special guest coming in all the way from Scotland, David Gowan. David and I met at the CISI conference back in London several months ago, and over more glasses of scotch than I care to admit, we had some great discussions on the financial planning process. And I think we were both surprised and enlightened by how similar it was from both sides of the pond, but also being able to take things to the next level. And I was especially impressed, David, by a question you ask clients at the end of each meeting. It was not at all the question I had ever asked or one that I had expected to have asked. So David, excited to have you on the show and excited to be talking about the client meeting process.
Thank you very much for having me here, Matt. Yeah, it's surprising to find financial planners and investment advisors across the world have the same sort of issues and the same sort of solutions? Maybe it is, but no, I mean, I've listened to your podcast for quite a while now, and it's very rare for me to find another financial advisor or financial planner that I agree in almost everything that you say. It's absolutely wonderful. If I had had the guts to create a podcast like you, I would have felt so proud of myself. So kudos for what you've done, and congratulations. So yeah.
Yeah, well, thank you. Yeah, and it was a lot of fun. I was very honored to be invited to come speak at the CISI conference. And I guess, David, to your point, I mean, at the end of the day, wherever someone lives in the world, still human being, right? They're still worried they're going to run out of money. They're still worried that maybe they're paying too much in taxes. They're worried about the markets going up and down. And while the rules might be a little different, or they are different from place to place, still all the same human beings.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, as anyone, as an individual, when you're growing up, you want to get as much knowledge as possible. Yeah. It's as simple as that. You know, you sit your exams and you become more knowledgeable, and you think of a process. And what was part of our conversation that we had was, at some point in your career, you always maybe have some enlightening moments. Some things happen where you go, I didn't realize that. And that happened with myself. And a good number of years ago, I had about 3 client meetings in a row, which was rather interesting. And the first client meeting was July in 2014 or something like that. And I had 3 client meetings in a row. And the first meeting, client came in, and I knew something was not right. And I thought, well, something's not right. Is it me? Are they hating investment returns? Have I not educated them well enough? Is it a case where I communicated something badly, or I've said I was going to do something and I didn't do it? And the conversation was a little bit stilted, and I could sense something was not right. And he said, right, David, I'm going to tell you something. I've not told my wife, I've not told anyone, but I really trust you, and I need to share this with you. I don't want you to be my therapist. I don't want anything like that. I don't want you to be my friend, but I need to tell you because I need to understand. I want you to help me plan for the future and things. He said, I'm an alcoholic. And I took a step back and went, yeah. And it wasn't the first time that someone had shared something really deep and perhaps dark, but it was the first time that I went, I'm not just a financial planner. I'm a trusted planner. I'm a trusted advisor, where you're taking someone's future, helping them through the nature of financial services, financial planning, but really they're actually sharing some of the best things in their life and some of the worst things in their life. And within that same month, I had another couple of clients. One was going through a divorce. They said, I want to tell you about this. And the other one, there was a husband and wife. They came in and they said, we've not told our children, I've got cancer and I've not much longer to live. And I thought, right, here we go. This is an interesting situation. And I had a lot of self-reflection. I've trained a number of financial advisors in the past, and I always say to them, the biggest thing you can do in your career is get into the habit of self-reflection. So we end up, as time goes on, we get into our habit of dealing with clients, and you get into a process, you get into your habits, you just do what you're supposed to do, and you might fall into bad habits. Self-reflection is unbelievable. If you remember what you're there for and think, well, what didn't go so well, That's absolutely really important. So from that self-reflection, I then did a bit of analysis. And I imagine you've maybe had some moments in your career with clients which were not a wake-up call, but it was now what do I do?
Yeah.
How do I use this and how do I analyze this? And I went into deep mode. I can be quite academic and I can be quite drill into the data, and I said, right, let's do a demographic analysis, right? Let's look at the clients. What do we have? What's their average age? What's their net worth? What's their income? What's their financial education? What is it we can do to add value to these clients? And I realized quite quickly that the demographics and all that analysis, that wasn't where, I don't add more value to a 55-year-old than I do to a 50-year-old. That was rather interesting as well. So I moved and I wanted to try and get more information from the horse's mouth. So you probably do surveys and NPS scores and things like that.
Yeah, sure.
So again, I'm still doing this data. I've got the NPS scores, scale of 0 to 10. You got your promoters and things like that. And the scores weren't really cutting the mustard. Clients can appreciate it. And then we got to the stage where you had the free text box. And the free text box was saying some words. And I was getting a common occurrence of words from various clients. And it was usually something like, I really like coming to the meeting every year. I'm here and you reassure me. You're giving me that peace of mind. You're giving me that sense of security. And some of them were really fantastic and saying, these are the happiest times of the year because I come in and you say everything's absolutely fantastic. I've got nothing to worry about. And I was looking at those words and words and words. And it was getting to a point where I'm going, I need to simplify this a lot more.
Mm-hmm.
So I got it down to 4 categories and I looked at a number of clients. I looked at 4 categories and the 4 categories were how is it you perceive us or me to add value to you?
Sure.
And one was progress towards my goals.
Okay.
The second one was sense of security. The third thing was investment returns. And the fourth thing was knowledge of my personal situation. So I looked at those 4 things and I thought, right, okay, these seem to be the 4 value adds that we're doing. And then I compared it to the relationship. And that's the thing that I never really did. I was just doing the same process, same year. And that's fine. There's not a problem with that.
Yeah, sure.
But you're a different person to what you were 20 years ago. I'm a different person. You have relationships with people that are different. Even though you've maybe still been with them for 20 years. And the same thing can happen, I think, with financial planners and client relationships. You go through a process, but you also have different emotions and different things that come out. And I realized early on in relationships with clients, they're absolutely phenomenally excited about defining goals and objectives. Oh, I'd like to retire at 55. Oh, I'd like to fly around the world 7 times. I'd like to have a holiday property. And that's really, really exciting. And I compared that to a romantic relationship. We're going off on a wee one here. But a romantic relationship is rather exciting in the first couple of years as well.
Yeah, it is.
You're getting to know each other. It's, this is new. This is fantastic and wonderful. And then as the years go on in a financial planning relationship, and what the data was showing me was that your progress towards your goals is not as important because you're saying that year in, year out. You're okay. You're great. Or we need to tweak a little bit. We need to do this. We need to do maybe a tax efficient contribution to something. We need to get you to think about your spending in this area. That was fine because everything was controlling. Investment returns, they got binned really quickly.
Mm-hmm.
Can't control that.
Yep.
So that's just part of the process of what's going on. And what actually became more important as time goes on was the knowledge of the client's situation, getting to know, and also sense of security, reassuring them that everything is going to be okay. So that goes up as the years go on and the progress towards the goals go down and the investment returns become a little bit insignificant. So I don't know if you share those thoughts with me, but it was rather an interesting situation that I found. And then it moved on to a couple of other things. So then I was thinking, right, okay, if that is the case and I've got that information, how do I become better at my job? How do I become better at role? So I asked quite a few of the top financial planners in the UK.
Sure.
And one of the things that I've found with them, 2 things I found. One was experience ends up becoming wisdom. So one of the things that I love about you is the surge meetings. I love that. I think you learn an absolute ton of things in surge meetings. Like if you do lots of meetings, you're learning. If you have isolate, if you spread it out over the year, I don't think you learn this quick. I think you learn brilliant. It's like an exponential curve. And I think experience then ends up becoming wisdom. And, it's a wonderful thing when clients really understand that you're trying to get it across to them from a wisdom perspective, not so much an experience perspective.
David, quick question for you, and this totally makes sense. I love this transitioning from just goals, right? Because if we go to the life cycle of a client, like you said, it's, hey, I want to retire at this age, or I want to buy this thing, but it does transition to sense of security. But it's such a subjective thing, and it's easy to overlook, right? So a client has been retired 10 or 15 years. They have far more money. They could never, if we do it on paper, you'll never run out of money, but it's not a number thing, right? It's an emotion thing. It's, hey, that worry seems to go up, even as the dollar amounts get bigger. It's almost like, and I don't know if your experience is different, it's almost like the clients that have multiples of what they need are more worried than those that have just about enough. But how are you getting that from the client? How are you giving that affirmation more than you have 2 million pounds in your bank account, you're fine? That's not what's going to cut it here. Yeah,
absolutely get that. And two of your best podcasts, one of them was the complexity curve.
Yes, yeah, with Paul Saganey, of Integrated Partners.
Magic one question.
Yep.
I always think a really good financial planner is usually correlated to the power of their questions. So if you can actually ask really, really good questions, and again, you cross-reference, you integrate that with the wisdom. You know when to ask the questions, you know when to shut up, you know what questions to ask. And I think you've got to understand the client as well. So I wouldn't go into a meeting with a script of 10 questions. Oh, let's go. Oh, that's how you feel? Right, let's go to that one. No, you don't do that. You've got to understand where the relationship's been with the client and let it come. And then I often look at it from two angles. One is you can compare it to another client situation. And that's a really good thing because clients like to feel as if they're not totally on their own. However, they do want to feel unique, but they don't want to feel as if you've never dealt with those people before. And the second thing I always do is I will always apologize in advance. But I will say, I'm really sorry about this, but I'm not just your financial planner. I'm here to challenge you to help you live your best life.
Interesting.
And I might ask you some difficult questions here. And I apologize. And whatever it is, it'll be, why are you not giving more money away? Or why are you not giving more money to charity? And this is a common one. Why are you not spending more money on yourself?
Yeah.
It's a huge thing. And, money habits, people smoke 40 a day. And if someone comes along and says to them, stop smoking, that's really hard to break a habit. It's the same with money. Money's got habits. Your money habits, you'd attach to that. So people are used to spending a rough amount of whatever each year.
Yeah.
And some young whippersnapper like myself comes along and you can double that. Go on, what are we going to spend it on? They still don't really want to go and do it because they're used to spending what they've always spent, which is why I then come in with I'm going to challenge you and say, things like, let's agree that you're going to enjoy this little pot of money. What you're going to spend it on in the next 12 months. And you can report back and you can make fun with it. And if it's still there, it's not a problem. But you can kind of push them and you're helping them to live their best life. And I think that's quite good as well. On the flip side of the challenging one, when I was talking about the best financial planners in the UK, one of the things that I really acknowledged was possibly controversial, but I think female financial planners are absolutely brilliant because they have this level of empathy.
Yes.
And I'm going to say I didn't have, and maybe I still don't have, but female financial planners have this wonderful listening ear, 2 ears, 1 mouth. They're great at empathizing and they're great at just understanding it. And it was something I realized they were a little bit more in touch with the emotional side of clients than I was as well.
Sure.
So your question there, Matt, I'm kind of answering it in a long-winded way. But it was about being challenging, but also being a bit empathetic to the situation as well. So,
David, I love that, right? Because sometimes I think there's questions that we're afraid to ask a client, right? Because it's in that personal area or it's, those habits that are entrenched. But I like that, right? I'm going to have to apologize, but part of my job is to challenge you to help you think about these things.
Yeah.
Now, David, tell us about the question that you end your client meetings with. This really stood out to me, and maybe it was a couple glasses of scotch, so we'll see if it has the same impact today. But this ties into the empathy. I was just super impressed that you're ending your meeting not with the standard, hey, what other questions do you have? Or when are we going to see each other next? Or here are our action items. But you're ending with a very empathetic, and I would argue a very difficult question to ask.
Yeah, and it's all, everything I've said so far actually led up to this thing that I started doing in meetings. And so what I realized was, and I'm quite a simple person, I really wanted to try and simplify everything that I do into my new realization. And so when I get to the end of every meeting now, I ask them, how do you feel? And I really pause at that. So I ask, how do they feel? And how the meeting's gone, it can either be, how do you feel about the meeting?
Sure.
It could be, how do you feel about your finances? How do you feel about your life? And I sit back and I'm genuinely interested in what they say. And I'm looking for the emotive words. I'm not looking for yeah, I'm good. I'm looking for, I feel reassured by what you've just said to me. I'm feeling fantastic. I'm feeling happy. I'm looking for some words. And I'm looking for the emotions, and I don't do it there in the meeting, but I go and record the phrases that they use. I don't replay it back to them in reports or anything like that. I have recorded it down, and what I've done is I've used that as an anchor for meetings, future meetings. So I was going to refer back to one of your other podcasts as well. Sorry, I think it was podcast, the one where you did the two most important thing with surge meetings. And one of the parts there is you come out and you do the dictation, and one of the best things that you do is to try and get it across to your team what you've done, and they don't need to come back to you, so that you're really efficient. Sometimes if you think what the end goal is, and if you are doing a really good job, in 5 years' time, they won't remember what you've done, but they will remember how you made them feel. And that's, people do sort of live with emotions. That's life, If you remember any of your greatest experiences, you will probably have a label of an emotion attached to it. And that's what I'm trying to do with that question. I'm trying to label it. I'm trying to use it. And then once you use it time and time again, you know also how you can gauge the relationship as well. So if some client says, I'm okay, I always feel then that I have to step up my game at the next meeting. I've got to absolutely do my absolute damnness to perform even better at the next meeting as well. Or I can feel reassured that I'm doing a really good job. So I use that as a very much a great anchor.
What if have you had it where it's a negative emotion, right? Where they say, boy, I'm confused, I'm scared, I'm upset. Because this isn't just you fishing for compliments, right? You're not just looking for validation of, hey, would you tell me how good I am, right? I mean, you're really, like you said, you're deeply interested and empathetic. Hey, how is this going for you?
Yeah, genuinely interested. I usually sense if there's any sort of negativity way earlier in the meeting.
Sure.
Although I'd say I end the meeting with, how do you feel? Sometimes if the meetings are not going according to plan, early doors in the meeting, I'll maybe just prompt around or prod around to find out the emotion, address it there and then, and bring the good points of the meeting out at the end.
Sure.
And ask them about their emotion then. So it's almost like I'm trying to push them into a greater place, a place where they've got positive feelings as well. I'm not a touchy-feely person. I'm not doing all that. But it's just important for me to try and give them a brilliant experience. I think it's my duty to improve their lives as much as possible, and I will do my utmost to get there.
Yeah, 100% it is. And as you highlighted, right, no matter how analytical or engineering or whatever the case may be, they are, it is that emotion that they're going to go back to, right? And that's not a disrespect. That's just how we are as humans. And I think where it really comes up is when we have to kind of put down a hard line for our clients, right? You and I have been in the industry a long time. We've seen a lot of ups and downs, right? But if you don't have that emotional rapport with a client and the market's bottom's falling out of the market and it looks like the world's going to end and you're saying, hey, stay the course. And they're remembering, you know what, every time I talked to David, I ended feeling good. This is all happening subconsciously, right? I ended in a positive place. I'm going to keep following David's advice. Where if that's not there, if they're thinking every time I talk to David, well, I won't use you, David. Every time I talk to Jarvis, I was a little bit confused. I was a little bit upset. I was a little bit irritated. I'm not going to follow this guy's advice. I mean, again, your point, in our heart of hearts, we're trying to create the ultimate client experience. This isn't like some cool sales tactic to sell an annuity or something. Like, this is really, how do I help this person achieve their goal? How do I help them, to your example, quit smoking 40 cigarettes a day or spend this money that they have?
Yeah, completely and utterly. I mean, I think you and I are cut from the same cloth in how unbelievably passionate we are with clients. I mean, I said to a number of clients that I would do this job for free, which everyone goes, yeah. And one client turned around to me one day and said, if you did it for free, I wouldn't be your client. And I got taken aback. And they said, I need there to be some sort of accountability. And paying a fee gives that accountability as well. And so from that moment on, I went, oh yeah, maybe I shouldn't say I would do it for free, because maybe my standards would drop and I wouldn't be as vested as well. So I do understand that maybe there has to be a commercial view to that. But outside of that, if you think of the greatest people in any profession, they are the passionate ones.
Yes.
And so I think, and also when it comes to passion, I think people sometimes describe it as you're either passionate or you're not. I think you can choose to be passionate. I think you can choose to be obsessed with everything that you do, to be the best that you can be, and to be the best that your family, your friends, that you can be a sort of ambassador for everything about trying to be better year in, year out.
It makes such a difference. I think it's hard to understate how big of a difference. You mentioned those couple of examples. I had a client last year who called me the day, we had a Zoom meeting the day before he died. He knew he was terminally ill. He got on the phone with me. He says, hey, I'm pretty sure I'm going to die tomorrow. And we're in a Zoom meeting. He says, would you go through with me one more time what's going to happen for my wife after I die tomorrow? And we'll call him Bob. I said, Bob, sure. And so we went, his wife's sitting in the back of the room. She's sobbing because she knows he's going to die tomorrow. And he says, you know what, Matthew, I just really appreciate you go through with me that one more time. I know I can die in peace. It's been great working with you. I wish you all the best. And it's right, David, it's that kind of connection we build, right? Like he had peace of mind, right? So we can talk about building great practices and we can talk about making lots of money, all these things. But he was able to die with peace of mind because we had that connection. Just like your client, cancer diagnosis or an alcoholic, like you had that connection. You were the only person in the world that he could go to with that alcoholic thing and say, boy, I know that you're going to help me in this. You're not just going to judge me on it. It's incredible what we do. And I know you, like you said, we're cut from the same cloth here. So passionate about it.
Yeah. And an utter privilege to be able to hear that information.
Yes.
I mean, you're telling me that story. I've got some other examples similar to that as well. And when that happens, you have to remain quite stoic as well, because doing that, but it really touches your heart. And that's the thing, it's the emotional side of things.
Yeah.
That if you're like really passionate, that's an emotion. And if they're trusting you, that's an emotion as well. And that's wonderful. If you've got passion and trust, can the relationship be built on that? Yes, absolutely. And then you can conquer everything. You can conquer objectives. You can talk freely and you can live that life, or you can help them live the life that they want to live.
Yeah, and it's so critical. You and I talked just for a minute before we hit record about the technology aspect, right? But as advisors, the technology, the technical expertise, you can outsource all of that, right? There's any number of really smart tax people and legal people and investing people, but that connection, right, that doesn't get outsourced. That's why when people talk about, robo-advisors or ChatGPT, there's like lots of great technology. It's not yet, at least, going to replace that connection. That's where I need to focus all of my efforts. That's where I really become a phenomenal financial planner.
Very, very true. I mean, I don't think trust isn't built overnight, first of all.
No.
Therefore, can you trust the technology? As soon as someone says, just chuck it into ChatGPT and you'll be fine. Yeah, you're not going to tell them your deep, darkest problems or fears. You're probably not also going to do the opposite and tell them your wonderful dreams as well, because you're probably thinking they're just going to throw some wild things at me on AI or whatever it is. And so as time goes on, it's not about what you know, it's about how you use that knowledge and how you interpret it and how you communicate it with the client. If you go into a meeting and if someone tells you something and you've got that intention to do your absolute best, I don't think AI can do that. That's just processing. It's processing. And it's possibly what I was only doing in the first few years of my career. And then when you move on and you understand that you need building empathy and you understand that you're there to build trust and you understand to be a listener, then that's an absolute wonderful situation. And I still believe it's the best profession in the entire world, what we do.
It really is. It really is. Well, David, thank you so much for your time today. Thank you for the bottle of scotch that we shared together and for your insights here. It was really so much fun to talk about these things. I can't wait for us to sit down and record another episode or enjoy another glass of scotch together.
Absolutely. Fantastic. Absolutely. It's been great to be here. And, if it's a case where there's any action points that come out of this, I would always suggest to people, take your next 5 client meetings and ask that how do you feel question at the end of it, and just write down and see what you get from it and see how the client reacts as well. What's the worst that could happen? You just have a little bit more information. What's the best that could happen? You might make a wee bit of an emotional connection and you might help build that trust a little bit more.
I love it. I love it. And so take that. That's good. I love that action item. How do you feel? Know that question works. Like David's got a very successful practice. He's trained a lot of advisors. So this isn't like something that he just made up. Like, hey, let me know how that works. I'm not really sure, right? This is speaking from a lot of experience. So again, David, thank you so much. And for all of our listeners, until next time, happy planning. Hey, before you leave, a quick word from our sponsors. Hey, everybody, I want you to take a quick look around your office, and on your desk, there should be the Retirement Tax Services Desktop Tax Guide. And if it's not there, or if it's not current, meaning you didn't download it in the last month, go to retirementtaxservices.com and download the Desktop Tax Guide. This is a must-have resource for every financial advisor committed to tax planning.
Hold on before we go. Something that you need to know. This isn't tax, legal, or investment advice. That isn't our intent. Information designed to change lives. Financial planning can make you thrive. Start today, don't think twice. Be a better husband, father, mother, and wife. The perfect RIA, the perfect